Bună ziua, dragii mei. I'd like to talk to you today about an author and a book written in 1927. The book is Thérèse Desqueyroux by François Mauriac, who went on to win the Nobel Prize in 1952 for literature. He was 5 years ahead of Camus. He was a member of the French Academy and a well-known Catholic novelist, basing many of his stories in the area to the south of Bordeaux known as Les Landes, where he himself had a beautiful house called Mauriac, which you can visit nowadays. So this novel, Thérèse Desqueyroux, I didn't much enjoy it when I first read it, when I was about 18, I think, and I was studying Mauriac, but I've come to appreciate his style, and the other novel I would recommend if you're going to read Mauriac would be Le Nœud de Vipère, The Nest of Vipers. He said, Je suis comme une truite qui remonte toujours le même ruisseau. I'm like a trout, always going back up the same stream. And this is reminiscent of Joyce's comment that we all have one novel in us, and we rewrite that novel if we write more than one. We tend to deal with the same ideas and the same approach. So what are the themes of the novel and what's it about? Well, the novel was inspired by a court case, a true court case, in 1906 in the Bordeaux court, and Mauriac himself was studying in Paris and asked his brother to send him details of the court case. And the court case was the Cannabis case, l'affaire Cannabis. And this was a lady, a bourgeois lady, who had forged a prescription to obtain some droplets, les gouttes foulaires, sort of digitalis, if you like, to stimulate the heart. But it contained arsenic, and as you may or may not know, the more and more arsenic you give, it can be concealed, and it makes the person who's taking the arsenic extremely ill. And this is what happened to Madame Cannabis' husband. But he didn't press charges, and indeed the case was dismissed. The same happens in Thérèse Desqueyroux. We have a woman in an unhappy marriage who decides to poison her husband. So why does she take that decision, and is she ultimately guilty? Well, Mauriac makes it clear in his preface, there is a preface to the novel, that he wants to leave Thérèse on the street in Paris at the end of the novel, and offer her the chance of salvation, the chance, if you like, of grace that is available to all Catholics. And Mauriac was a great believer, but he said he couldn't excuse her behaviour because that would offend too many people. So we're left wondering, why does she try to kill her husband, and ultimately, is she guilty? The style, the structure of the novel is interesting. It's very filmic. It's almost shown as a flashback. The first 8 chapters have Thérèse returning to her country house, Argelouse, and she's preparing her defence, if you like, a confession which she will make to Bernard, who is waiting for her. Bernard is her husband, whom she's tried to poison. And the last chapters, chapters 9 to 13, deal with her incarceration in Argelouse. She is confined there, and then her release in Paris as Bernard decides it is better for her to be free than to keep her at Argelouse. What are the themes of the novel? Well, Mauriac deals with many of these themes in many of his books. He deals with the theme of regionalism. Many of these books are set to the region south of Bordeaux, known as Les Landes, this desert-like area which spreads to the Atlantic. If you know Arcachon, you will know that it has the highest dunes in Europe. and the dunes and the sand are held back by pine trees which were planted. And the pine trees are a source of wealth for the landowners because they release a gem or resin, and they are milked, if you like, for this sap, this resin, which is then sold. So the number of pine trees you have determines your wealth. Otherwise, there are a few farms and some sheep farming, but not very much else. It is very poor quality soil, very poor quality land. The country house to which Thérèse is returning is called Archelouse, and it is about 10 kilometres from the nearest town, Saint-Clair, as it's called in the book, where Bernard's mother and father and stepfather live. So there's a theme of isolation and claustrophobia and enclosure, and this idea of stifling everything. Il faut tout étouffer, étouffer. Even her wedding day is described as le jour étouffant des noces, the stifling day of the wedding. Hardly a happy day for Thérèse, although she has illusions before she gets married. She marries Bernard. She is an intelligent woman. She reads a great deal. She loves to read novels. She is a free thinker. She is not a Catholic, although she tinkers with ideas of mystic religion in the latter part of the novel during her confinement, when she's looking for any way out of her solitary confinement, which is effectively what she's condemned to by her husband. She marries Bernard Desqueyroux. Why? Because he's a wealthy landowner, and he's not such a bad person. He's better than most of his peers. But she is deemed to be more intelligent than Bernard. But she too has a huge estate, and their adjoining estates are linked together. So here we see a critique, if you like, of the bourgeoisie for treating marriage, relationships as trade. They have to be seen to be doing the right thing, and Bernard will brook no jokes, no insults about the family, because the family is all that counts. And if you don't follow that path, you are excluded. And indeed, as an ancestor, Julie Bellade, who was a black sheep of the family, a maternal grandmother, had her pictures, her photos removed from every family album so that she no longer exists for them. Just as in this book, Thérèse will no longer exist for the family. She will be excluded and excised. She is not even allowed to see her daughter Marie, although, to be honest, she has very few maternal feelings for this daughter, who is really looked after by Anne, her sister-in-law. Mauriac is, I find the book reminiscent of Madame Bovary in some respects, in that it deals with bored housewives in the country trying to eke out an existence or to find some meaning in the country. And whereas Emma Bovary has no talents, Thérèse is an intelligent woman who seeks companionship with Jean Azevedo, the boyfriend of Anne de la Trave. She enjoys discussing literature with him because he's a student in Paris, although he's just as misguided as anyone and tends towards mysticism as he talks about his admiration for Charles Foucault, the famous hermit priest of Tamanrasset in Algeria. So the theme of enclosure, claustrophobia, not only mental enclosure because she can't communicate with her husband, emotional enclosure, claustrophobia, but also physical enclosure, enclosed by the pine trees that surround the house Archelouse, where she will spend the rest of her life. Why does she marry Bernard? Well, because she wants to be part of society, and the only way to be part of society is, and se caser, to find a role in society, is to marry. And she thinks that she loves Bernard, but she realizes during her honeymoon that she doesn't. He is a pedant, an arrogant pedant. He displays the typical characteristics of the bourgeois class. He despises Jean Azevedo because of the latter's Jewish origins. and goes around the art galleries of Europe consulting his Baedeker guidebook and wondering why paintings are not in the correct place in the correct gallery rather than looking at the paintings. Ironically, for a major landowner, he can't see the wood for the trees. Really, Thérèse has married him to become Anne's sister-in-law because she loves Anne, her friend, her childhood friend. But the place where she is sent is called Une extrémité de la terre. It is in the middle of nowhere. And there are all sorts of references. Indeed, even the judgment in the case of non-lieu, non-lieu, no place, it indicates this. Fate plays a part as well, just as in Madame Bovary, la fatalité. In Madame Bovary, non accusée que la fatalité. Here, she thinks about committing suicide as part of her desperation, as she's in solitary confinement in the house, guarded by two servants. And just as she's about to commit this act, Tante Clara, her aunt, dies or is discovered to have died by Baliante. Similarly, why does she decide to poison Bernard? Well, she doesn't. She just sees an opportunity the day of the great fire of Manot. Bernard, who is taking les gouttes foulères, he's taking these drops in his water, and he puts the drops in, goes out to see about the fire, comes back and forgets that he's taken his drops already, so takes a double dose. And she sees the opportunity to add further drops just to see how he will react, and he reacts terribly and is terribly ill. So, what we have in the first 8 chapters, as I said, is confession, a presentation of character, and Mauriac tries to make Thérèse look like a sympathetic character, so we will feel sorry for her. It's a psychological novel about a dysfunctional individual. She can't function in her society. One of the best versions of this, I said it is a filmic novel using flashback, was filmed in 1962. There was in fact a remake, I think in 2012, starring Audrey Tautou from Amélie, you may have seen. But I would recommend the 1962 version, which is magical and stars Philippe Noiret and Emmanuel Riva, and is very accurate to the text, so it's a good representation. Ultimately, she's freed at the end of the novel. She's allowed to go off in Paris to live her own life. She has independent wealth. She won't be allowed to see her child again, her child Marie, but she has few maternal instincts towards her. Indeed, when she returns from her honeymoon to discover that she's pregnant, this is horrific, because this traps her in a loveless marriage for the rest of her life. Reminiscent again of Madame Bovary, when she has thrown her wedding bouquet into the fire and watches the little slivers of paper go up the chimney. Et les corolles de papier racorni s'envolèrent comme des papillons par la cheminée. And then the next line, Madame Bovary était enceinte. So Emma's similar despair at discovering she is pregnant when she's just burnt her wedding bouquet and that she no longer loves Charles Bovary. It's a wonderful novel. It's a novel I appreciate now, probably best read in the autumn because it is autumnal at the beginning. There are light motifs of light and dark, and I think it is a rewarding read. If you don't want to read this, Thérèse Desqueyroux, then why not read one of his other novels, Le Nœud de Vipère, The Nest of Vipers, which deals with similar themes of a loveless family and complicated relationships within that family. But as always, Mauriac holds out the option of Catholic grace and redemption, even for the worst sinners. So we feel that Thérèse may be redeemed. She isn't redeemed in this particular novel, so Mauriac went on to write a further 2 novels about her. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have read the book, I hope I've shone some light on it. If you haven't, please enjoy it. Thank you.